We're going to make some geometric shapes today. These are some simple ones, such as circles, triangles, and squares, but we're going to make ours a little bit more advanced, kind of like what you're seeing here. Now, when we get started on making shapes, sometimes what we do is we draw them on our piece of paper. And this is an okay way to do this, but when we draw them and then we cut them out, sometimes we end up with a lot of scrap paper. So I want to show you today how to make your geometric shapes with the least amount of scrap paper. We'll start out with a nice easy one. How about a rectangle to start out with? So if I just cut from one end to the other, I ended up actually with two shapes. Almost a square and a rectangle. But let's say that I want to take this one down and make it into a perfect square. We know that a square has four sides just like a rectangle, but a rectangle has two that are long and two that are short. So we need a square which has all four sides exactly the same. If I fold this from corner, or so that these two edges line up, and then I cut along this edge. If I open this up, it becomes a perfect square. So now I have my square and a rectangle because these two are longer than these two. Maybe I'll do that again. And I'm going to make another couple of squares. I want them to be pretty perfect. So I'm going to fold them in half, or fold this over to the side and cut along this edge. That's going to give me my perfect square, right? But this time I'm going to make this a little bit more complex. What I can do is just nicely trim off all the corners. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now that I've trimmed off all the corners, my shape has how many? Help me count.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
It has 8 sides. So what kind of a shape is this? Octagon, yep. But I also ended up with these little tiny shapes. Are these shapes that we know the name?
Yes.
What are these?
Triangle.
So you can end up with even your scrap using them because they turn into geometric shapes too. Now, one that we didn't talk about yet, and it's still a fairly simple shape. I'm going to fold it in half again, cut it into my square. Notice I'm starting the same a lot of the time. And what I'll do is I'm going to start from one side, and I'm going to make kind of a rainbow coming up over here. See how that becomes a rainbow? When I open this up, what am I going to get?
Circle.
Yep, that's a pretty good circle. And it's a little lopsided, so I can go back and I can kind of fix that. All right, moving on. If I take my rectangle or square and I cut from corner to corner, I end up with a large triangle. And so I could maybe use these. Oh, this one's a good one. Hold on. If I cut along here, again, I'm going to start the same exact way, making my square. But this time I don't glue it down as a square. I put it on its side like this. It has a different name. What is it called?
Rhombus.
A rhombus. Very good, a rhombus. Yep. Now I'm going to show you another one. Man, there's so many fun shapes that we can do. Take a look at this one. Rectangle right now. If I take from the corner up to the top, from the corner up to the top, what is this one called?
Trapezoid.
Yep, we can make a trapezoid. And look at these little scraps I can still use. They're still geometric shapes. All right, let's try another one. What if I take from the corner, I'll do it on this big one here. From the corner, at a diagonal line, I'm going to flip this over. I'm going to go the same direction, corner diagonal line. Do we know the name of this one? This one has an interesting name. It's a big name. It's called parallelogram. Let's say that together. Parallelogram. Of course, we can make an oval. So here I'm taking my rectangle and I'm just kind of trimming off the edges here. That's a nice oval. And you can make other shapes such as hexagons or any of the gons, pentagons. You can experiment to try other shapes that we haven't talked about. But look at this. Look at the scrap paper that I ended up with. I can use everything except for, well, here's all the scrap right here. That's not much, is it? I ended up with not a lot of scrap, and look at all the shapes I ended up with. Pretty good. All right. So that is how you can use all of your paper to make lots of geometric shapes.